Climate change is a growing concern. With global sea levels rising between 16 and 20 centimetres since 1900, climate change is undeniably having an effect on oceans, land surfaces, ice caps and weather patterns across the globe.
Report scarcely any ice as far north as 81 degrees. Soundings show the Gulf Stream very warm. Masses of ice have been replaced by moraines of earth and stones, and it goes on and on. Within a few years, it's predicted that due to the ice melt, the sea will rise and make most coastal cities uninhabitable.
What year was that written?
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. This is 1922. This is November 1922. And
now to a dire warning about climate change. According to a new report, experts say that we have until 2030 to avoid catastrophe. It also says if unprecedented changes are not made and made soon, there will be irreversible damage to the planet.
And we're like, the world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change.
Now, I know what you're thinking and or saying to your computer screens. Who are you? That's me. To create a video debunking climate change. You're no atmospheric scientist. See, the thing about that is, neither are you.
The planet is warming, and human activity is contributing to it.
A survey of thousands of scientific papers that took a position on climate change found that 97% endorsed the position that humans are causing global warming.
Some 97% of scientists who have written in peer-reviewed journals say the following: climate change is real, it is significantly caused by human activity.
The most famous source of the 97% agreement comes from a study in 2013 by Australian scientist John Cook. He looked at almost 4,000 scientific papers that made some statement about whether humans were the main cause of climate change. And 97% of those papers agreed with the consensus. To make sure nothing was misinterpreted, he also asked scientists to rate the views of their own papers, and they found the same 97% agreement.
David R. Legates. Legate? I don't know, I'm not racist. A professor of geography at the University of Delaware and former director of its Center for Climatic Research, and 3 co-authors reviewed the same papers as Mr. Cook and found only 41 papers, a whopping 0.3% of all 11,944 abstracts, or 1% of the 4,014 even expressing an opinion. Certainly not 97%.
I don't discount the layperson even studying this thoroughly and having a good mind to analyze the information.
Exactly.
You don't have to be a PhD to understand the basics of the situation. In particular, to understand how much uncertainty there is in this subject, rather than the whole science is settled dogma. That's just intellectual laziness, I suppose, to just say the argument's over.
That we're at one of the lowest levels of CO2 in Earth's history. Okay,
yes,
that's really
very
important.
Good point.
I mean, 440 million years ago, when we were in the depths of the coldest period in the last half billion years, we had 1,100% of today's CO2 levels, according to geologic proxies. So, yeah, CO2 is very low right now. They say 40% rise in the last century since 1880. Well, that's peanuts in natural terms.
Well, Bill Nye the Science Guy is now aspiring to a new title, Bill Nye the Psychoanalyst Guy. During a Facebook Live event with Senator Bernie Sanders today, the mechanical engineer and TV personality said, skeptics of global warming suffer from the psychological delusion of cognitive dissonance. It's a slight bump up from last year when he was open to the idea of imprisoning skeptics, global warming, as war criminals.
So the Science Guy show is over. We did 100 shows. It almost killed me. And I got to move on to something bigger. Is the Earth flat or round?
But I don't have much patience for anyone who denies that this challenge is real. We don't have time for a meeting of the Flat Earth Society.
Now, who's Michael Mann? Well, he's an academic at the
Pennsylvania State University, where he directs the Earth System Science Center. He's famously or infamously associated with the hockey stick graph, the illustration that, in my view and that of many academics, falsely claimed the sharp rise in temperature that looked much like a hockey stick. The Earth's temperature was flat, 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 like the shaft of a hockey stick, then spiked upwards like the blade you use to control the puck.
Into the 70s and come up to today, and there's almost no warming. I mean, less than 1 degree warming since 1978, and absolutely no warming since 1998. What kind of deal is that? Well, I'll tell you what kind of deal it is. It's the kind of deal that's full of silliness if you're promoting climate change and global warming. We are in one of the most stable and beautiful periods of Earth's climate you could hope for.
That the satellite data over the last 18 years demonstrate no significant warming whatsoever. Global warming alarmists call that the pause because the computer models say there should be dramatic warming, and yet the actual satellites taking the measurement don't show any significant warming.
But, Senator, 97% of the scientists concur and agree that there is global warming.
The 97% figure that's thrown around, the head of the UN IPC said that number was pulled out of thin air.
You're familiar with the phrase, the pause?
The answer is yes, and essentially we rest on our position.
And to what you said you are familiar with the pause, so to what does the phrase the pause refer? I'm sorry, you said you were familiar with that term, so I asked to what does it refer?
Essentially, it's the slowing in global warming during the 40s, sir.
During the 40s?
Back in 2013, the United Nations said that there was a pause in climate change. Now, this isn't me. This is the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Despite the robust multi-decadal warming, there exists substantial interannual to decadal variability in the rate of warming, with several periods exhibiting weaker trends, including the warming hiatus since 1998.
We concur with 97% of the scientists that believe that the anthropogenic impacts of mankind with regards to global warming are true.
So does that mean you're not willing to answer the question?
We can concur with the preponderance of the evidence and the science at 97%.
Some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.